philosophy and the great contribution of entrepreneurs, or great entrepreneurs, has been mentioned. They produce accelerations because they share conditions, they share products, and they obtain results. The acceleration is a concept that is also valid for our countries. Since some time after the pandemic spread out, Europe put in place a great accelerator. That is the European Recovery Plan, or Generation EU, if you want, on a philosophic point of view, which speaks to the future generations. So our main is to have strategies in place that help us to put in place projects. And mostly this is valid for younger generations who have the right to see some opportunities, many opportunities. This accelerator is a great occasion for countries such as Italy, which is lagging behind compared to others. It has a very high public debt, and so we need to solve this problem. We need to move from a situation where we cannot do anything and into a situation where we can solve problems. We have come to a structural point in time, just to use a term which is really very much used in the economics and in politics. The recovery plan, if you want, is the accelerator of Italy. It works because we have two conditions making it possible. One thing are the resources in really great quantity. And second, the objectives. The objectives of the national plan are those that the Italian government, the parliament, and Italy asked and obtained from Europe. So it is clear that in these conditions, we only have to move forward. It is a very difficult situation, and we have to move forward. This makes me optimistic because when I look at the situations where the acceleration works, the acceleration principle, we can generate great results. And never, as in this moment, the social capital, the social system, and the human asset can cooperate to produce and enhance this acceleration principle. I don't want to lose time, but I would like to add a few words about the banking system. As we learned in school, the banks are those things that are useful to move resources from those who spare money to those who invest it. And this shall be protected and improved thanks to the new technologies as well. But the real question is, where shall we invest? So let's put together the accelerator of the recovery plan with the role of the financial system to be able to reply to this question. We should invest there where we can improve our life and also the environmental sustainability. There we can make the best use of our technologies. I am not banal, but I would like to insist on the fact that the resources shall be used to their fullest potential. The bank, and I have the honor to belong to the banking system, makes of this principle its basic philosophy. Banks are at their place, are there to produce resources, are there to mediate, and are there to help the system, the economic system and the enterprises, and they are there to help to use the informations that are being shared by the companies. It's not easy, but it's absolutely on the front line, and it's our obligation as well. That's what we do, and we do it on a concrete plan. I would like to mention an example of governance. The acronym that many of you know, and that is really very much in use now, it's the ESG, which stands for environment, social, and governance. The governance of companies. The investments, today's investments and the future investments will be more and more centered around the ESG. There will be more and more investments that do not only respond to the concept of efficiency and profit, but also to the demand of wider sustainability. And this is an element on which UniCredit is investing a lot, and it's doing a lot. And we are really proud of being on the vanguard of the financial system in Europe. So we think that the financial system is useful to mediate and to use resources, but also to sustain, to share information, and to promote the role of enterprises, which are the main actors on this point of view. UniCredit is proud of being here today and to contribute once again to the development of this great region. And not only. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Land reaching excellent actors, excellent companies. Emilia-Romagna is rich of people who really are proud and they are proud of doing great things. The pride of citizens of this region make them known abroad. Many products are being exported abroad. We have many companies promoting the Motor Valley. Motor Valley is really an initiative that makes us very well known worldwide. I would like to give the floor to the Undersecretary of State for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mario Di Stefano. Good morning. Good morning to all of you. It's really a pleasure of being here. And I would like to start by thanking all the organizers and President Bonaccini, Mr. Padoan, and all of you. And of course, I would like to extend my gratitude to those who make this possible. The developers of these means, of this technology, which is really the basis of an excellence such as the Motor Valley initiative. So I would like to thank them because they make our country proud of being in this initiative. It makes our life easier, and because we don't have to run after people, we only have to tell what we are abroad, and this really makes the difference between the Italian skills and what we are and how we are appreciated abroad. This is a really unique condition worldwide. If we name a series of excellencies, we have the Motor Valley initiative as a representation of different companies and also as a brand. This is a project on which the regional government of Emilia-Romagna is working since a long time. So our intent is to tell you that the association between the production unit, the production capacity, and the land is a winning factor as such, because it makes us makes it possible to tell not only what we produce, but it makes it easier to attract investments. The attention on innovative clusters is more and more well known abroad as well. It is an attention on which we are investing today. We are also investing on a migration, a technological migration towards sustainability and the challenges of the future. The President Padoan spoke about the ESG, but also about many aspects concerning the development goals. The technology is guiding the innovation on the automotive, and the technology is being pushed toward the sustainability, the usage of renewable energy, and the consumption reduction. This is, of course, something on which the companies represented here are investing a lot, and they have the right occasion to tell you experiences, several experiences of an Italy that is really strong when it comes to technology. When it comes to the concrete role of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we play a big part in the export. It's a record. It's an absolute a record that we have in this field. We speak about 11% of manufacturing companies and other important numbers. We have incredible numbers, and they are very strongly linked to the land. We have 270,000 operators, 7% of our production companies. These numbers are not just important to mention, to boast about that, but they make us understand how important it might be to defend this sector and to protect it from external factors. We wanted to introduce this sector at the basis of the pact with foreign countries that we signed with Minister Di Maio, with 140 associations that we convened at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs during the lockdown phase, to be able to understand how useful this pact might be. We wanted this pact to be easier to use. We adapted it now to the new crisis and to the war between Ukraine and Russia. And this plan, I can say, it can be readapted according to the needs of the different companies, because we want to avoid to have problems with the production chain in the delivery of raw material. We have very important data in 2021, which are great numbers. We grow a lot compared to France, but of course, we cannot sleep calmly without thinking about problems. So it is important to push this sector, and that's what we are doing with the greatest communication campaign that our country has never done. Italy is simply extraordinary beat, it's called, and we are honored to support this campaign with the regional government of Emilia-Romagna, with ACI, and with the Ministry for Transport, because we believe that telling stories about our excellencies can also be done through the organization of sport events. We decided to support the Great Grand Prix of Imola, and since this year the Series A league, because that's the place where you can see the major excellencies of the Italian products. We support the motor valleys as well, and it is important to see how this campaign works. Now it is oriented to 25 target countries. Now we have Russia as well, and we overcame 6 billion of turnover. This campaign started as a campaign based on the Made in Italy brand, and told what goes beyond our tradition, and told many information about the sustainable products, about the innovation. Now we are more and more investing on industries. Every company can tell their innovation story during this campaign. So our aim is to reach 1 billion consumers worldwide, and so that this consumer can buy Italian products made in Italy. We developed a series of e-commerce platforms that can create showcases for Italian products, and in all 25 countries we chose. This initiative helps us to make our products grow, our visibility as well. And of course, it's crucial for those companies that create the products. And I'm proud, and I can tell you that we are currently working, creating synergies between the different ministries on the basis of the resilience and recovery plan. And we are keen on developing more and more networks. We are working on the friend-shoring of certain value-added chains. We are currently on the reduction of dependency of Italian supply chains from just a supplier. This is valid not just for Russia. Russia was just what helped us to create awareness. We do not want to abandon our objective to decarbonize our country before 2050. We all know, among a series of competitors, that the level of technology can make the difference in reaching this objective while producing great products, competitive cars. This is a challenge that we want to face together. So once again, I would like to share the fact that the Italian government and the Ministry for Foreign Affairs in particular is with you, is with Made in Italy, is at the Motor Valley event, and we are at the side of Italy of the new global challenges that we are currently facing and that have been defined in the past before this crisis happened. So break a leg, have a nice day, and this is also a very nice event showcasing the nicest products of Made in Italy production. And it is very, very much respected worldwide and treated with great respect and great attention. Thank you so much.
We have so far and often talked about growth accelerator, the Motor Valley Fest. Being at a fourth edition, we have reached maturity, and I would like to talk about it with Giuseppe Molinari, who is the president of the Chamber of Commerce of Modena. Good morning to you, Mr. President. Good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, authorities, delegates. On behalf of Chamber of Commerce, we are at the fourth edition. It is the maturity edition. 4 years maybe are not to be regarded as such, but in this case it is, because the format chosen for the Motor Valley Fest was very well established over time with due changes that have been applied and to adapt to changing times and challenges. It is a maturity that also refers to our community. This Motor Valley Fest reflects the maturity of this community, the fabric made up of enterprises, employers, employees, citizens who have gone through so many difficulties and challenges, starting from the earthquake and so on and so forth. And over the past few years, we were therefore hit by these difficulties over the past few years in our daily lives. The challenge is not over because raw material cost has gone up in the sky. Deliveries are a problem. The pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and then the war, that it is a true plague for everyone, and hopefully it will be settled peacefully soon. In spite of all these challenges, our land, our entrepreneurs, our enterprises, as the president of Emilia-Romagna just said, Mr. Bonaccini, in spite of that, we still enjoy 3.1% growth rate in Modena province, and therefore it ranks among the 5 best-growing provinces throughout Italy. There is a company every 9 inhabitants here. And so the time that we are going through now is a true challenge, and a Motor Valley Fest is a sign of maturity. It is a challenge by itself, a challenge that has to be addressed with an eye to the future, with the strength and values that we are characterized by, with cohesion, flexibility, creativeness, passion. And especially, we want to have a vision for the future. We want to drive the future. If you look at the agenda, you will realize that various topics are going to be addressed. It is not just a showcase, but it is an opportunity to learn about the new frontiers of sustainable mobility, environmental, ecological transition, and with the topics like avant-garde, state-of-the-art technologies, and hydrogen and AI being dealt with. AI should also be based in our future vehicles. The Chamber of Commerce is always close to its companies, and the Chamber of Commerce has always expressed its interest in such a festival. Because the Chamber of Commerce has always supported enterprises and this initiative since the very beginning, since the first edition, because we think of tourism, of food processing, food and wine, and a relationship with the digitization, training, education, university. Education is at the very basis of our growth and development, but that shouldn't let us forget about food industry. This is the Motor Valley Fest, but we shouldn't forget that our region is also well known as the land of food and wine, a food valley. We have 22 Modena-related PDOs, 30 local specific products that are labeled as under the Sapori taste umbrella. And we are quite a unique case in the world because we gather the experience of all the main food branches, food processing branches. So we are a true food valley. We are a state-of-the-art region, and we want everyone to be involved in it and to have hands-on experience about it. We want to be spot on. We want to really bet on our future so that we can enjoy these days and look ahead in the future. And I would like to close now by thanking the organizers and all of you, and let's enjoy our Motor Valley Fest.
Presidente, ok, ora ci siamo. Grazie quindi Presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President. And now we have the top table, the round table, the panel discussion with the keynote speakers. And let me thank them, Andrea Sakoder and Johannes Ruger, CEO engineer for Bosch Automotive, Riegler from the
Essere con noi in questa giornata. Discuteremo quindi rapidamente con loro.
And so we will discuss the issues with related to the automotive industry. We will talk about the automotive industry so that we can focus on issues like markets, consumers, the drivers of high-performance cars and of the whole supply chain. And so a few minutes to Cornets, a senior partner from McKinsey, will illustrate the general trends for mobility at a global level and automotive, and then we will enter into the details of evolutions of numbers of Motor Valley drivers and users, talking about the most useful technologies to meet customer needs as well as sustainability. And the floor goes to Mr. Cornet, and enjoy his presentation.
So, thanks again for the very kind introduction. I hope I actually understood everything right. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is actually a highly impressive venue, and I have to say it's my very first visit to the Motor Valley Fest, and I have to say I'm impressed in every single dimension. It's a great honor for me to be able to speak to you today, also representing my Italian colleagues who have been working with the Motor Valley think tank for quite some time. You see already the title of my presentation, The Future of Mobility, What's Relevant for the Motor Valley. And in the next 20 minutes, I actually want to do three things. I want to talk about what's going on in automotive. I want to talk a little bit what of that is relevant for emotional mobility? And lastly, I want to talk a bit, what does it mean for the Motor Valley? And I think it's not an exaggeration to say that we are currently at a moment which will define the next 10 years for automotive. And I just want to share with you 4 numbers. The first one is actually the effect of the inflation. And you see on the top left that currently the difference of profitability between suppliers and OEMs is going up significantly. And I think it will be crucial to find a balance how to share the burden of inflation. The second element you see on the top right, you see that Tesla, I think currently a market cap of $700 billion, is approximately 40% of the worth of the entire automotive industry. And the question will be, what will be the winning model? Will it be the market cap model a la Tesla, or will it be a profitability model? On the bottom left, we are talking about semiconductors. And I think everybody is feeling the pressure to get chips, to get semiconductors. We are currently working with a couple of associations, and the outlook for semicon is that if the automotive industry is currently using 8% of the semiconductor capacity, this will almost double. This is in the plans, this is in your plans, until 2030. And only if that works, only if we get a larger portion of the pie, automotive will be able to grow like they want. And last but not least, we have gotten used to a world where car sales are growing by 3 to 4% every year. That was basically the case since the financial crisis. All projections we are looking at are looking at a growth rate of max 1 to 2%, which means we have to cope with significantly less growth. Looking into the future and talking about trends, I think it is very common since a couple of years to talk about the ACEs, or CASE, as others put it. So it's A for autonomous driving, it's C for connectivity, it's S for smart mobility, and it's E for electrification. I think some 2 years ago, we at McKinsey said we need a second C. We called it the C square, because we think that the cities are actually the place where future mobility will be invented. And it's very important to take a close look on the cities. I want to highlight some of the developments in the next couple of charts. If we talk about the future of automation, we basically see that things are moving now. Yeah? The first L-through cars, the series L-through cars are on the road, and L4, level 4, which is really, really automated cars, are being tested. Nevertheless, you also see that the different scenarios we have been developing are coming out with the projection that it will take quite some time until we have full autonomy, if ever. Yeah, you see that some of the scenarios don't come to full autonomy at all. Nevertheless, our projections also show that by the year of 2025, approximately 50% of our cars will be significantly automated, so level 2 or higher, which is really substantial. This, of course, is also depending on the customer. And you see here a couple of numbers from Italian customers, but you also see on the right-hand side what would be the global equivalent. And you see there's not so much difference. And as you see, the number one reason which is holding back customers is that they're not fully sure if this autonomous driving technology is already safe. And given that for most of the models today, autonomous driving is an extra, you have to make a cross, you have to order that. It's very important, I think, for the automotive companies to communicate and to make sure that customers are getting it, they are experiencing it, and they see it's safe, it's secure, it works. This entire development, which we are seeing, is also totally changing the electronic architecture of a car. And I think we all have gotten used to a car having some up to 100 or even more little silver boxes with some electronics and some dedicated software. But this model is basically kind of overcome. And again, at the forefront, we have Tesla and a couple of others. They are basically designing a car like the often mentioned computer on wheels. So it's not one computer. Currently, it's rather 3 or 4 computing centers, but that will be the development. So we will see cars which are not having dozens or even more of electronic control units, which have few and more integrated control units. That means for suppliers, some of them have gotten used to able to deliver some hardware, to deliver a control box with some software. They will have to build up the ability to connect into such a car architecture, and sometimes it will be a fraction of code they will have to deliver to other suppliers or to OEMs. I think it's fair to say that the entire way this value chain is working is actually changing. And connected with that, I talked about the connected car, connectivity. I think it will also be the case that we will be updating our car as often as you are updating your iPhone or your Samsung phone, which is probably every couple of weeks. And that will be a fundamental change. Talking about cities, we see a couple of changes. I think it's important to notice this is not happening uniformly in every city of the world. It's actually a very heterogeneous picture. Some cities are not changing at all. Some are changing fundamentally. And I think the famous example is Paris, where the major, like the very progressive mayor, Anne Hidalgo, is making lots of changes. You can read it on the charts. So diesel engines will be forbidden in the center. Gasoline engines will be forbidden. There's bicycle lanes. And there's even the vision of the 15-minute city, where in the city of Paris, you can reach every point within 15 minutes using all kinds of different modes of transportation. And I think it's important that automotive is being part of that this is not being left to the cities or to the countries or to infrastructure provider. I think automotive has to shape. It's a very important role the industry has. And finally, talking about electrification. And we have been working together with ACEA, being the European Automotive Association, on the charging infrastructure. And I also heard in the introductory video the mention of 2035, where we will have no emission according to regulation. We have modeled on this picture, what does it mean if we have 75% of electric vehicles, both battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid and fuel cell electric vehicles, in the year 2030. It would mean that by then, on the road, it would be approximately 1/4 of vehicles being electrified. There would be a new value chain, which is actually a very attractive and interesting one also for the Motor Valley, of course, worth 91 billion euro. There will be 24 gigafactories to be built in Europe to provide the batteries. This will cause 80% additional CO2 emission producing the battery, which doesn't come for free, of course. My favorite number, to get there until 2030, we'll need 15,000 new charging points per week. Yeah, per week, once again. I just calculated waiting in the booth. That means while I speak in Europe, we need 30 new charging points in 20 minutes. The electricity we would need to power these cars is actually not that much. It's 5% on top what we currently use as electricity. Nevertheless, also this solution would not fully close the CO2 gap, which we all want to do. So an enormous challenge, which can also only be solved by several industries together. What is also fundamentally changing with the move to electric cars is the emission structure of the car. And you see on the very left of this chart, for internal combustion engine, 90% of CO2 emission are from driving. and only less than 10% are from producing the car. Yeah? So it's about driving. Once we have fully electric cars, fully powered by renewable energy, the emission from driving will almost be away. So then 80, 90, 100% will be from the production of the car, including the battery. And we have to find ways how to address that. You see on the right-hand side, which are the materials you have to abate, you have to make carbon free. And you see the aluminum is important, steel is important, and of course, the battery is important. Many of you might ask, what does it mean for the automotive value chain? What does it mean for component suppliers? And we actually see a quite large turnaround. Yeah? And we classified the components in 3 categories. You see that. There's the one winning, like everything which has to do with battery management system, electric engines, inverters, and all that stuff. There's the one being neutral, which is things like air conditioning and maybe some structural elements of the car. And there's the sunset commodities, which basically so far have been very important in the Motor Valley, in the Stuttgart Valley, elsewhere on the world, where we have to find solutions. Finding solutions does not necessarily mean they are not there anymore, but they will require a certain amount of innovation, a certain amount of change, and I'll talk about that. So far about the entire industry. We want to talk about emotional mobility. We want to talk about luxury cars. We want to talk about sports cars, hypercars. This is what, to some extent, the Motor Valley is very much about. And what you see here, all of you know that, is actually good news. While the entire automotive industry on top, you see the millions of units having been sold, has been developing not so attractively. There was not a lot of growth, and now we have a lot of shrinkage, due to the pandemic. You see that the supercars, which we have below there, I think it's above $150,000, have been growing more steadily, more heavily, and also haven't been shrinking that much or at all in the pandemic crisis. So that's actually good news. It seems to be a more resilient industry compared to the rest. You might ask the question, yes, but is that proceeding like that? Well, nobody knows, especially in these times. This is a chart which we have drawn before what happened in February. And you can see the answer would have been yes. It will continue growing. And you see the number there, 300,000 ultra high net worth individuals. That's people having a net wealth of 30 million euro and more. That's a lot of money. That this number is growing, mainly driven out of APAC, mainly driven out of Asia. And you see also that the other regions are a little bit losing importance against Asia. So what does it take to be successful in, let me call it, emotional mobility? And there's actually 10 elements I want to talk about. The first one is customer experience is really important. And I think players have to invest in that. Consumers are used to get, quote unquote, spoiled by other categories, and they want the same in automotive. The use of an omni-channel sales model, which optimally connects between offline and online, will be very important. It's cheaper, it's generating the better customer experience, and it's ensuring that car producers get the data of the customer, which they definitely want to serve him even better. We have to tackle the Generation Z. The amount of millennials and especially people from Generation Z as a percentage of the buyers is getting up, and they have special needs. They have to be treated specially. We think it will not be a global model, it will not be a regional model, but will be a model city by city. And I want to talk about that in a second. We see also that there is not one emotional car consumer, not one sports car consumer. There's actually pretty heavy differences between China, between Europe, between the US, in the specific customer needs which have to be addressed. I think we have to also define a new future of ICE cars. We do not want to let go of this emotional sound. We do not want to let go the design of a V8 or another engine. But we have to find ways to align that with sustainability. And then there's 4 technological elements, which is basically all in for electric. This is pretty provoking, I know. And I know that some of your customers definitely do not want a BEV, that they want to stay with the ICE engine. Nevertheless, I think there has to be an offering, and if I look at all the companies being present, there is an offering, and very often that can enhance the driving experience. Yeah? Lead in infotainment. Our experience is that very affluent customers are leading in digital. They want a superb digital experience in the car, outside the car, which is very important to provide. It's very different. Step out where advantage is basically, and I'll come to that, there will be new things car players have to do. For instance, about software. And I think it will be very important to say, what will I let go to have money, to have capacity to do the new stuff? And after all the 10 elements I already mentioned, we think that hypercars, sports cars, supercars will stay a very attractive segment to what I showed on the chart before. So let me give you 3 examples, just 3 examples. First of all, I want to talk about stores, online, offline, omni-channel. And I think a very impressive way of doing this is what NIO is doing, mainly in China. Yeah? And you know that they have their NIO houses, which is nothing like a car dealer we know. It's basically a holistic offering. And they also have their app, which is a little bit also a connectivity element for many of the customers. And customers react to that in a very, very positive way. So I think that's an interesting example to look at. The second example I already mentioned, where are those ultra-high net worth individuals? And you see here a list of how many of those 30 million plus people do we, for instance, have in London. And it's actually 6,611. That's way more than I would have expected. What is interesting, that all those cities will have their specific way of addressing sustainability. Yeah? There will be combustion engine banned from the city center somewhere as of, 2030, somewhere later. And I think it's very important for luxury cars, supercars, sports cars providers to address this very specifically on a city-by-city level. And I already talked about how can we make ICE future-proof. And I'm personally convinced that particularly e-fuels, so the fuels made out of solar-powered electricity together with hydrogen and carbon dioxide, are a very important element of the solution, as they are basically offsetting almost all the emission of an existing car without almost any changes. And that's very powerful, and I think is something which also should be understood by regulators, because it's a very effective and very quick means. And there's players, you all know that, already working on factories. Porsche, for instance, is developing something in Chile, which is producing, I think, 130,000 liters this year. This is nothing, but it's projected to produce more than 500 million liters of e-fuel by 2026. Currently, the price for e-fuel is something like 4 or 5 euro, but the planning is showing a price of, a bit above 2 euro for 2030, which is basically the same as today for normal fuel. So this is important. Last but not least, what I would like to do is talk a little bit about the technology. And the Motor Valley think tank has been very effective in pushing technologies. Individual companies have been pioneers in certain technologies. And there's 7 technologies I would just briefly like to mention. I think it will be very important, as many of you do, to be on the forefront of high-performance, low-weight batteries. Yeah? This is important for performance cars, semi-solid state, full solid state, quite some time out, but it would also be important to be at the forefront. Lightweight materials, if I'm informed right, some of the very first application of this are coming from the Motor Valley. This is impressive, and I think there's also an increasing opportunity to apply those technologies elsewhere, like for instance in aerospace or in space technology. Aerodynamics is of course something which is natural to high-performance cars, supercars, but also could find applications elsewhere. For every single battery electric vehicle on this planet, aerodynamics is very important to increase range. We talked about synthetic fuels already. It will be very important to be engaged. It will be very important to talk to the regulators. I think that's a clear focus, and it's the case for the Motor Valley. Of course, manufacturing software and applied artificial intelligence will play a role like they did in the past, but could also be an area which you are offering to others. Last, but I'm coming back to the in-vehicle software. I talked about the architecture of the future. Yeah? There's the notion of the software-defined car. And I think many of the players in the Motor Valley, like many other players elsewhere, are at the beginning to develop their own software units, their own software departments. And it would be very important to have a well-thought-through strategy. And last but not least, I think, and I'm coming back to cities, it is very important that we, as mankind, find ways to have a zero-emission mobility system in our systems, in our cities, and that will also include micro-mobility. And why shouldn't players out of the Motor Valley who know their consumers, who know technologies, who know their wishes, who know powertrain, why shouldn't they also engage in micro-mobility? Ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot for listening. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Un ringraziamento quindi.
So I would like to thank you. Really very interesting presentation. And now we are ready to talk with the next speaker, which is very important as well. He will give us the vision of Bosch in the evolution of people and also products. He will be concentrating on technologies, on products, on innovation, and on the performance. We will be speaking about synthetic fuels, software-based self-drive, and shared drive, and technological car. We would like to welcome the new speaker, which is Rüdiger Johannes-York, which is the president of Bosch Engineering Limited Company. The floor is yours.
Oops, that was one too fast. All right, so we start here. Cari signore e signori, un grande.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here to speak about the future sport car.
Motor Valley, what is more natural than talking about sports cars? How will sports cars of the future look like compared to today? And will the DNA change with all the transitions that we just heard about in the industry totally? Or are there ways to kind of keep the development from the past and the achievements? So this is successfully developed DNA of the past that has finally defined sports cars here in Motor Valley. My name is Johannes-Jörg Rüger. I am the CEO of Bosch Engineering. And although we have long-lasting relationships basically to many customers here in Motor Valley, maybe there's somebody who doesn't know us yet, so I would like to introduce my company to you. All right, that doesn't work. Here we go. So we are 100% Bosch owned. So All of you probably know Bosch. By the way, greetings from the Stuttgart Motor Valley to the Motor Valley here. So we are 100% subsidiary of Bosch. We are in 14 locations, 8 countries. Basically, we are where our customers are. And most of our customers are sports wagon customers and some startups. We have some 3,000 associates around the world. And we support our customers from a batch size 1. Sounds silly or funny, but it indicates that the production volume for us is not important whatsoever. For us, it's important to support our customers in the various fields of their activities. And by the way, I'm proud that I'm the fourth person in a row from Bosch management to address the Motor Valley Festival here. But since numbers and KPIs that you see on the screen here are just telling a little bit, and moving words are telling more than just facts, I would like to show the following video to you.
For more than 20 years, we engineer and develop innovative, tailor-made solutions for our customers. To achieve the best results, we offer a wide range of engineering services. Complete vehicle development, e-mobility, vehicle dynamics, safety and security, modern testing facilities. Our experts show amazing engineering skills. And we want the best possible solution for our customers. Therefore, Bosch Engineering relies on a close and trusting collaboration. Because together, we can push for innovations and sometimes create the exceptional. What moves us today is passion for tomorrow.
So it's all about innovation, passion, and creating the exceptional. And we have done that together with companies here in Motor Valley in the past, and of course we want to continue with that. That has been a recipe for success for all of us. And the automotive industry, however, is in huge transitions, and many transitions at a time. So we heard about those trends in the previous talk, and I would like to focus on 2 of those here. One is what's going on the powertrain side, and second, software defining more and more the user experience of a car, sometimes visible if you talk about infotainment, sometimes invisible if it's about vehicle dynamics. So you've got supporting functions that the driver may not recognize. By 2030, we can expect at least about 50% of the powertrains being battery electric. Tendency is rising, of course. And at least 95%, if not 100% of the vehicle being connected. So basically every new vehicle will be connected. So if this is the general industry trend, which is certain, I would say, what does it mean for sports cars? What's the impact for sports cars, and what's the best solution for those? That's a big question. And basically, sports cars have never simply followed the mainstream. So it's the question, what's the best solution for a specific use case? And the use cases for sports cars are clearly different from a normal auto or normal vehicle. For a sports car, which is driven at least from time to time on a racetrack, certainly the requirements are different. So no doubt that battery electric vehicles will be interesting sports cars in the future. There will be, and we have already some examples in the market, and there will come more and more. And of course, that's an interesting thing, no doubt about it, but we talked about the DNA of a sports car. That changes quite a little bit because, I mean, focusing on lightweight in the past and now putting on a battery that increases the weight of a vehicle by 500 kilograms or more is something that sounds at least a little bit different or strange in the first place. So the question is, and this is what I want you to widen the perspective a little bit, are there other solutions which for specific use cases may be superior? Again, what are the KPIs which are important? Of course, if you look at the powertrain, it's space. Sports car is not huge. It's weight, its range, and of course usability. Usability under the specific conditions of a sport car, which is different again from a normal vehicle, as I mentioned before. So if you move from the battery electric sides that you see here on the screen on the left, if you move one step further to the right, we look at fuel cell electric drives, which from a volume perspective are a little bit, more or less on the same page, like battery electric. Weight, at least if we talk about longer ranges, weight can be reduced. Fuel cell vehicles certainly cope with the problem of recharging, because refilling of a fuel cell car will be easier than and faster than recharging of battery electric. So it's a little bit from that perspective, from a usability perspective, closer to combustion engines. And maturity of that technology, of fuel cell technology, will increase over time. Not directly coming from passenger cars. We have applications already in the market, overall in the market, and we as Bosch as well, on commercial vehicles. And also sports vehicles can benefit from the development and increase of maturity of that technology over time. Now, if you move further to the right, then you see here plug-in hybrids. Of course, we have that in the market, and combustion engines. We have that too. The question is, how does that develop over time? Of course, we will see Euro 7 or Euro 6E or something like that. So further challenges for the combustion engine, but we are pretty sure that those challenges, as we have managed together to overcome challenges to reach the next emission level in the past, we will be able to do that also in the future. So I'm pretty sure that will be possible. Now, it may be confusing that we are still talking about liquid fuels here and combustion engines, and not just about electric drives and battery electric and maybe fuel cells. Well, actually, the final target is not to electrify the world. The final target is to bring the carbon footprint down. And if that can be done differently than just to electrify everything, that's maybe an option. And I'm talking about options here. As I mentioned before, battery electric will come. We are involved in those developments, and of course, we are supporting that. But we have a strong feeling that technology neutrality is something which is very important. And talking about the combustion engine, as we have seen in the previous presentation, the question is not whether the concept is right. The question is, how do we bring the carbon footprint of the fuel down? So it's all about e-fuels and hydrogen, which can be used in a combustion engine as well, which I will introduce to you in a second. So if that's possible, and if you use just zero-emission fuels, we have seen from the previous presentations that the carbon footprint of a combustion engine would even be lower than a battery electric car, because on the production side, the carbon footprint is lower. So it's important to look at those alternatives. Now, talking about e-fuels, kind of two categories, and of course there are numerous variants of e-fuels. We have e-gasoline, e-diesel, e-methanol, and finally we have also hydrogen, H2. If you look at the e-fuels first, the obvious beauty, and that is really crucial to reach our emission goals and to bring the carbon footprint as soon as possible down, they can be used as drop-ins, as we are used to with biofuels. If you have, for example, 20, 30, 40% of the petrol being replaced by a zero-emission e-fuel, you bring down the emission of the whole fleet, not just for the new vehicles, down by that percentage. And if we want to reach our CO2 targets on a longer range, that is important, because the footprint of the fleet otherwise would kill us. So we need to have a solution for the fleet. That's absolutely crucial. Although it's just an intermediate step, because long term, we would either need 100% e-fuels, so 100% carbon neutral, or hydrogen being produced from regenerative energy, and then it's carbon neutral too. So that's an option as well. So if we look at hydrogen being used as a fuel, as the energy source, again, if it's green hydrogen, then it's quasi CO2 neutral, because if you want to be honest, of course, there's a residual engine oil being burned, but overall that's far less than 1 gram per kilometer, so that's neglectable. And from that perspective, H2 engines, as well as H2 fuel cells, as well as carbon neutral e-fuels, combustion engines, can be treated as carbon neutral and will support our long-term target to reduce our carbon footprint. So if this is a way to eco-friendly sports cars, which, by the way, if you look at hydrogen, can even have a better performance than the base engine, and can keep the DNA, which is important, because here we are talking about keeping the DNA, keeping the knowledge that we all have accumulated over the last decades, and we can bring that to the next level, then there's a huge advantage for all of us. So there's an opportunity, again, with e-fuels and H2 engines to reach a final target, to reach zero emissions, and it's a viable option and alternative to battery electric vehicles. Of course, it depends on your starting point. If you would be a startup and you want to start from new, of course, you don't want to be involved in all the combustion development and all that stuff, because that's very, technology intense. In that case, probably you would tend to introduce battery electric vehicles right away. But if you have that experience and accumulated that experience in the past, it is an option to keep that experience and just bring it again to the next level, which then would be CO2 neutral. Now, what does it mean thinking about an H2 engine? What does it mean? How do we bring an engine from gasoline to hydrogen? Because, of course, if we talk about sports cars and hypercars, we talk about gasoline today. So what are the steps? Of course, we need to adapt the combustion system and the fuel system to some extent. We need to change or adapt the engine design, the air system, the exhaust, which, by the way, will be less complicated than the Euro 6 exhaust system, and certainly less complicated than Euro 7 exhaust system. So from a packaging perspective, that's an advantage, from a cost perspective as well. And so there are some steps to go here. And of course, packaging of the H2 tanks is quite a challenge, I know. But I mean, we are here to overcome challenges and find exceptional solutions, as mentioned before. And if I'm saying, well, we need to work on the combustion engine, need to work on the engine design, these are things that we are used to. That's our normal way we worked over the last decades. We have knowledge in order to do that. So that's not such a big deal. And just to illustrate that, we took an engine and worked on it a couple of weeks and have it now on the test bench running fully with hydrogen. So that's not something that takes you years over years of development, but something which is very close to our current development skills. If you look at the advantages here of such an engine, it would be from a weight perspective. Of course, you don't need the battery, so weight would be similar or equal to today's vehicles and powertrains. The range depends just on the tank size that you can package, that's clear. But usability is important. Usability is important because you would have unlimited usability, so no derating over time, because like for a battery electric vehicle, after 2 or 3 laps on a racetrack, you would run into temperature problems. This is exactly the same usability that we are used to and your customers are used to with sports cars today. And you would be able to carry that over into the future. And I believe that's a very important thing, and that's the reason why I'm saying it depends on the use case, which concept is favorable and would be the best solution. What we often hear, if we talk about burning H2, is a low efficiency. It's true, if you look at the efficiency in general, it is lower, and we would need a larger tank and have a higher consumption of H2 compared to a fuel cell. That is correct. But at full load, it's the opposite. At full load, the H2 engine even has a higher efficiency. And now again, think about a sports wagon, a sports car, or a hypercar being driven on a racetrack. For sure, you don't want to go low speed, but you want to go high speed. In that case, you have high load, and you have a similar efficiency. So that argument doesn't really count that much. And on the other hand, as we have heard before, H2 will be a source of energy in the future anyhow, because it's needed. You know, with rising number and volume of renewable energy, H2 is needed as a way to store energy between production and usage anyhow. And I believe if you look at those specific use cases, like sports cars, it is something where the overall consumption is not really that important. So highest efficiency is not that important. It's more what's the best concept for the usability of such a vehicle for the user. So what would be the concrete steps that we can support our customers with? We would start with simulations, of course, to decide first what's the right concept. We would then go into engine design, packaging of the energy storage, so the tanks, prototype building, development of software, verification, validation. Does it sound familiar? This is what we usually do for our vehicles so far. So this is all where we have knowledge with. And we did studies with customers to support them with such a transition from a gasoline-driven engine to an H2-driven or powered engine. And I believe that having the experience is key, and we as an industry, we are able to bring those concepts as an alternative, not as a replacement to battery electric on the road. Now, said in the beginning, I want to talk about powertrain, but also about software. So now changing subjects a little bit. So we heard in the beginning, basically all vehicles in future will be connected. Not just that, we will have more powerful centralized computers. Why that? Because simply the amount of software is increasing. We have seen an increase of software, if you look at lines of code over the last years, by a factor of 10 in the last 10 years, and expect the same for the next 10. So a huge increase over time. And the reason for that is simply a more complex functionality which is needed. And we have that functionality. You experience it all the time in your own vehicles. If you look at the infotainment, if you look at your driver assistance functionality or vehicle dynamics, all those functions require software. And if you go further into by-wire system like brake-by-wire or steer-by-wire, of course, more software is needed, particularly to keep ourselves safe and secure. As I mentioned before, not just more software, but also more centralized. So we will have fewer controllers, some of them more powerful, and we will move functionality up from the domain controllers to a more centralized computer. And the reason for that is simply, or one of the reasons, besides complexity, one other reason is that functions are more and more interconnected. So we are coming from a world where we had the different domains. You had powertrain, you had chassis, you had Then it started off with driver assistance functionality, and all of a sudden you are in a situation where all the functionality is interconnected. Think about, for example, automated parking system. Yeah, you need a steering, you need a powertrain, you need a brake, you need an ADAS system to understand your surrounding and whether you have passengers or people walking around the vehicle. So you need all that stuff. And that's a classical example for fully interconnected functionality. Now, we heard about the software-defined vehicle. What does it mean, basically? Because we have software in the vehicles so far. Okay, the content will increase. We are used to that. We have seen that in the past. What's the difference now going into the future? Well, one important difference is that we start to think vehicles more from the feature side, so from outside in, rather than having all the domains and you use software as a kind of glue in between to make that all work. Yeah. So we are starting in a world where we have more feature-based development. You think from a user perspective first, and then software comes first, and then you allocate the software on the computers and controllers that you have in your system. And as I mentioned before, we have this interconnection between functionalities and domains, and that's the reason why we need to have functionality on such central computers. And what we heard as well is that in the future, we will update software similarly like you update your smartphone today. Maybe not as often, but you will do that regularly. And this is what we call here a DevOps cycle, which means development and operations. So far, we develop a vehicle, then it goes into serious production, and we are done. And maybe we have connectivity for an e-call or something like that. In future, a vehicle which is fully connected, and we collect lots of data once it's in the field. We have a possibility to monitor data, to use the data to further develop the functionality and deploy the functionality again to the vehicle. So we have a continuous learning cycle, if you will. And that's important because then we have a chance to always enhance the functionality. So development is not done with SOP. SOP is the first step, but then functionality is enhanced over time. And that offers, of course, new possibilities for new business models for our customers as well, towards the end customer, because you could offer functionality to somebody who goes today or this afternoon to a racetrack, functionality that he just needs today, and you can offer that for a fee for the usage of today, and he doesn't need to order that and click that once he orders a car, but just for the usage. And that offers new possibilities for new business models, which we need to think about as well. With this whole new brave world, we will move into a situation where we have more IT technologies. Now coming from the embedded world, we move into the IT-related world. And that by itself calls for faster development cycles. What is important though, because it sounds so easy, and then you collect data, you learn from it, you deploy new functionalities to the vehicle and so forth. What still holds is we need to have a comprehensive understanding of the vehicle, particularly in terms of safety, security, verification, and validation, because that doesn't go away. Of course, we need to be safe in the field, and that means that the knowledge that we have collected over time is still, or even more so needed, given the fact that all the vehicles are connected to the cloud, and that means that there are lots of intrusion points which we need to control and be able to have still safe, reliable mobility. Now, let me take you on a journey to show what a car with a customized software could look like. So imagine, of course, here in Motor Valley, you want to go for a short drive on a racetrack. We heard we have so many here, so it's easy to find one nearby. So you enter the vehicle using a functionality which we call perfectly keyless. You use your smartphone, and the smartphone, and then indicates who you are, what your personal settings are, transmits that information to the car, and adjusts the car, and then you drive. On the drive, your information domain controller provides you with information on the road, whether there's too much traffic on the road, with information about your target destination, weather conditions, for example, and stuff like that. And of course, your personal information that you want to have. Important not to distract you, but to provide you exactly with the information that you need for your purpose. And of course, driving on the road to the racetrack, your ADAS system, your driver assistance system, keeps you safe and keeps you on the road and keeps you in the lane and ensures that you don't have an accident. Now, once you reach the racetrack, your integrated vehicle control functionality provides you with something hidden, if you will, which for the end driver is not really visible, but provides him an understanding that even if he's actually a poor driver, or maybe just mediocre, it makes him almost a Formula One driver because the functionality takes over the experience gap, if you will. And once you have that, and you still get into a critical situation, there would be, here we come, the integrated brake slip control that keeps you safe and ensures that you brake 20% less braking distance than any other braking system. So this is something we have developed and we bring into serious production soon. So let me summarize. Selling emotions is your key expertise here in Motor Valley. And I don't believe that transformation of the industry will make that go away or will change that. The sports car of the future for sure will have a carbon footprint of 0. That's important. But from the other perspective, it's important to show a way how to keep the DNA of a sports car and to use the experience that we collectively have developed over time. Software content will rise, and that means that we need to collaborate with several partners in the industry because it's becoming too complicated for one party to do that all on her or himself. So we are ready to create the exceptional together with you and with our customers here in Motor Valley and elsewhere. And we will do that with innovation and passion. Thank you very much.
So the importance of collaboration, passion in everything we do. So thank you so much for the explanation and the analysis, Mrs. Ruger. Siamo ora pronti dopo aver...
And now we are ready to have another deep dive, an update. After Mr. Ruger, we will have an update about the trends of digitization, and we will discover how the process has developed, and in particular, more in detail, we will outline the process in the automotive sector. So we will have a deep dive, and we will provide a new introduction about the Metaverse, and we would like to welcome the new speaker, Christian Richter, Director, Google, Global Vehicle Lead, Automotive and Auto Retail, on behalf of Google.
If I counted this right, I'm the speaker number 8 this morning, and I'm the third guy with a German accent here on stage, so I pity you all a bit. I'll try to make it really good and entertaining. Actually, the last 2 years, I did my keynote here to you via Zoom from my living room, and I'm really, really, really happy to be here now in person. It's so different, and I'm so happy to do this here with all of you. Also, a little fun fact, and I'm saying this because of this amazing opera house. My mom was an opera singer, so I grew up as a little kid running behind the stages of the Nuremberg Opera House, driving her crazy because usually a stage they have all these things and elevators where as a little kid you can fall in. And so she was always really, really worried, and I was super happy running her out. So this feels very, very much like home to me. Also, my last two keynotes were more generalistic about using AI and machine learning in automotive. So today I want to dig deeper more in the sales and marketing side of it, because I'm responsible for the advertising part of everything we do with Google, with the 8 largest manufacturer groups in the world. And I want to talk about the why, the what, and the how to future-proof your entire sales and marketing operation in a post-COVID new normal. So let's start with the why. And there are 4 key observations we've been doing as Google over the last year, and let's actually look at them in more detail. The first one is we see brand loyalty dropping and customer eyeballs really, really being online. Brand loyalty is dropping for combustion engines because there's no inventory. If you have no inventory, you start to shop around. It's actually dropping or way lower for EVs because if you have a history of 100 years of building world-class combustion engines, that does not necessarily mean that the customer thinks that you can build a good EV. So when we track customer journeys for electric vehicles, we actually see that there are twice as many brands in the data set than for a combustion engine. The other thing is also in particular high income group don't consume traditional media, linear TV anymore. So you need to keep your branding activities up. You need to tell a story, and you need to do it where your customers are, and they are very, very much online. The second is you've seen a massive shift to e-commerce happening during COVID. You've seen it in automotive and dealerships were closed, but you've seen it across all retail categories. What we see from our data is that in a post-COVID world, actually that level stays. It's not falling back. It continues to grow, not that much anymore, but it continues to grow. So that means all the investments into e-commerce solution, into true omni-channel solutions are worth doing because this is a sustainable trend worth investing to. The third one, what we also see, there are a lot of new players coming up in the sales and marketing arena. It's the very, very large dealer groups. It's the leasing companies, but also point players like, for example, a Carvana. I don't know if you know Carvana, but you order the car online and it comes with this truck with a big glass box and they put the car in front of your house. You can return it, you can test drive it. It's a total online experience. You never ever set foot into a dealership. And they go full online. They go with a really, really, really good customer experience. And they actually are going to control the customer. So for traditional OEMs and their dealers, this is becoming, there is a fight for channel control happening. And I think you should definitely use your incumbent and strong position to be on top of this. The last one is that we've seen people and regulators and browser techs are raising the bar for privacy around the world. So so everybody wants to be private, but everybody still wants to have a really, 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 really good conversation with a brand. So you need to react to it. You need to build a first-party data-based architecture and strategy. So let's talk, so this is the why you should change. Let's talk a bit about the what. And what should you do to make these 4 trends work for your business? And there's so many things out there, so many buzzwords. Should you do a live stream? Should you work with creators, influencers? What about the metaverse, remarketing, analytics? Yes, you need analytics. Short form video, long form video. Oh, should you include the cloud, whatever? So I think what you always should do, does this support your core strategy? And does it really have a big ticket item impact on your business? So please don't chase shiny objects. We've seen this a lot in the industry. New thing comes up, everybody tries to do it, but really take a step back and think about what really makes sense. So again, working with the 8 largest manufacturer groups, I would personally say these are the fantastic 4 to focus on a winning strategy. And it's all about reach, about e-commerce transformation, about data architecture, and also making automation work at scale. And let's have a look at each of those in a bit more detail. So, about reaching customers. So here's a fun story. My wife and I, we have a TV, we have a smart TV, so we can watch Netflix, Prime, YouTube, whatever, we can watch all of this online. And then, of course, it also has this cable box that supplies linear TV. The cable box was broken. We didn't find out for 6 months because we just didn't watch linear TV for 6 months. And then I think we wanted to watch some Heidi Klum top model stuff, and we found out it doesn't work. But actually, we didn't use it for 6 months. And that's not so uncommon. We actually see a lot of younger, high-income groups that are living their life totally online. And so this is also where you should go. And here are 2 examples from customers. The first one, where we worked with Hyundai on the Ioniq brand, which is an EV brand, we actually said, let's balance out TV versus YouTube and really balance it out in a very, very effective way where actually your customers, the customers that show interest in the Ioniq brand, really are. And we found a really, really efficient balance with, if you look at the KPIs, very good improvement. And just to give you an idea, the cost per person reached for YouTube was 1/3 of that, what you do on TV. However, also TV played its part. And I think the thing is you need to find the right balance. You need to use data to find the mix that works for your customers. We went further with Mercedes. So for their EQA launch, electric premium car, maybe not by the standards, but from premium car, they actually said, we're going to stop advertising on TV completely, and we go fully digital. We just do the entire campaign online. And actually the results have been great. They totally reached the people they wanted to, highly efficient, massive uplift. So let's go on to the second thing. We say treat e-commerce and omnichannel retail as a true transformation program. And I think this is important. And because when you do it, we very often see you start one thing, you start the other thing. But I think this is a bigger thing. It reaches from your website to your call centers, to your dealers, to your CRM and DMS integration, everything. So treat it as a true program. This is a way how we systematize these programs. So we say you need to work on a customer experience. You need to have a right marketing strategy, and you need to have the right strategy around data and technology. And then the next thing is also, there are some steps that are easier to do. So for example, work on site performance, or just getting local actions in place. And then there are some things that are harder to implement, like improving the purchase process, or the entire data integration for you, but also for your partners. And I think this is how you sort of can systematize it. There is more behind such a program. There are really specific actions. But for example, please do not start working on bank data integration if your website is still super slow to load. Bank data integration is really hard, in particular if you do trade evaluations and all of these things. Improving site speed can go way faster. There are off-the-shelf tools to do it. And just as a data point, if your website takes longer than 3 seconds to load, you lose 50% of your customers on average. So go fix this first, and then work your way down. And again, treat it as a holistic transformation program. For your specific situations, this program and the framework can look different. For me, most important is please treat it as a program and set it up internally. Then, number 3, building a solid and comprehensive, what we call CDP, customer data platform, data architecture. And the reason why this is important is because you need to work with first-party data in the future, and probably very much only with first-party data. First-party data is information that is captured with direct consent from customers in a responsible way who interact with your business online, offline. In a responsible way, I say that's important because there are techniques like fingerprinting or other techniques which, for example, we consider as very, very unresponsible, which might, are the gray area between what the regulation allows and not. And you should actually not do it. You should put in systems and processes that are compliant, but also very, very responsible, because this is a lot about building customer trust in the way you collect the data. Consent is important. Make sure your consent is being collected at every point, because without the consent from the customer, you cannot use the first-party data. So, for also very important, this first-party data is the basis for anything you will do with machine learning. Because machine learning always needs a success event. Did you sell the car? Did the person come to your dealership? Did they do the service with you? Did they, any success event which is important for you? So for the machine to learn if there has been a business success or not, you will need this data. So this is a key fuel for anything you're going to do with AI and ML in the future. And for this step, you need to put a comprehensive data architecture in place. And this is what we call, again, the customer data platform, a centralized data platform. And that focuses on bringing the data together and being able then to action on the insights. And there are different technological solutions, but all of them have three things in common. They are a data warehouse that is connected one side to the internal systems, and on the other side to the advertising tools you're using. At Google, for us, is this Google Cloud BigQuery, which is a centralized data platform and integrates this Google Ads, Google Marketing Platform Analytics. Again, most important is that you think about such an architecture holistically that it can execute end-to-end what you are asking from it. So I talked a lot about machine learning, AI in the past, but at the end, all of this is about automation. You can do AI in a very customized case. You put data scientists on it to do something one-off. But if you really want to make it work at scale, across different countries, across all your national sales companies, you actually need to use automation. And also, all of your AI use cases should have a clear P&L impact. If not, don't do them. So again, think back about checking. Is it the right thing you do? Because all your organizations are very constrained. So here are 12 examples of automation use cases in the sales and marketing arena of auto. They're all based on a CDP technology, and all of them can have clear P&L impact. Let's pick one. For example, propensity to convert modeling. This predicts customer segments who are most likely to buy, so you can actually focus your efforts and budgets on those audiences. And we've seen purchase rate differences of 20 to 60 between high propensity and low propensity audiences here. So it actually has a real strong P&L impact. You can reach the people that buy, that don't want a discount, that buy all the extras. So it's a very, very powerful thing. Also, this is not a comprehensive list, of course. This is a thought starter for you, depending on your specific business and situation. And you also do not need to wait until you have the entire data architecture in place. I think that's also the good news. Data platforms are not static. They can evolve over time. And you can start with limited data and already make powerful use cases work. For example, if you look at the propensity modeling, which I just mentioned, this is what we call a level 1 use case. It can start with the basic tech in place, with the basic data connected already, and be very powerful. And then as you feed more data into it, as you expand the data envelope, it of course gets better. So just get started and then gradually add step-by-step stuff by connecting more data to the system. Let's talk about the how, and let's really take the CEO perspective here. Because the key question is, there are so many challenges out there we just heard about from the other speakers. There is the macroeconomic situation, there is decarbonization, there's regulation, anything you really, really have to work with. So how do you set this up? How do you make this work in an organization that is already very, very stretched? And across all of the works with OEMs and large dealer groups, I think there are 6 transformational principles that are emerging. 2 principles focus on leadership and execution. So the first one is really executive ownership. This is not a CMO agenda. This is an agenda that reaches across several functions. It's sales, it's marketing, it's the IT department, it's anything that has to do with your dealer network. Possibly it can stretch into first-party data that is generated in the car. So you need to treat it as a company-wide PMO effort and not give it to a few people in your marketing department. It will fail then. The second one is a partner ecosystem. You have a lot of partners on the tech side, on the implementation, you have agencies, you have system integrators, and they need to be up to the task, and they need to also to be paid accordingly to the economics of a first-party data world. The other 4 can be applied to prioritize the project portfolio. Think about again when I said there's so many things you can do. So the question is, how easy is it? What's the complexity of implementation? Is it simple and off the shelf, or very complex and custom solutions? P&L impact, does it really move top line, gross margin 1, or not? Then a lot of brownfield versus greenfield. I think that's important. So can you just go and take a new tech and put it on top of the old one? Or do you need to go and connect and modify hundreds of legacy systems? And it's a trade-off of speed versus cost very often. One thing we've seen with a large dealer group in Asia is they said we cannot integrate all of our dealers. We just give the sales staff tablets with a new system. We tell them, leave your computer in a corner, put Post-its on it, whatever. But just work with the tablets where the new system is on. And by this, they actually could roll out a new sales infrastructure across multiple markets in Asia within a few months. And the last one is also launch and learn versus 100% perfection. I think that's important for the auto industry because in auto, a lot of things need to work 100%. I mean, brakes need to work 100%. You cannot tell your customer, I'm so sorry, but those brakes were in beta. Not so good. But you actually can start experimenting on the sales side a bit. Okay, maybe that doesn't work so well. Maybe you could have sold a few more cars or at a little higher price point. It's not optimal, but it helps you to experiment. And it's nothing that's super, super critical in a way. So make sure you differentiate what part of your operations needs to have 100% perfection and what of it where you can use more of a Silicon Valley type of launch and learn approach. And so, for example, this is just illustrative, but this is how you could then use it to prioritize your projects and say of all the possible ones, there are probably 2 using these 4 criteria, which you should really start doing. Here are, and let me close with 2 examples of companies who applied those principles, I think, really, really well. So let's first look at a luxury company. Let's look at LVMH Dior. And what they did for Parfum Christian Dior was they used an off-the-shelf machine learning product, which is Google Smart Shopping, to double their conversion rates online. So their product was available, it was easy to implement. So if you think about this, was simple, greenfield, launch and learn, and with a high P&L impact. And was a luxury brand because LVMH's customers are highly, highly digital. Actually, I ask you to look at how LVMH is doing online. They have a really, 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 really good data integration. All of their stores are connected. The inventory is connected. If you're looking for a product, whatever, a handbag that's not available in Milan, they will find it in Madrid. And bring it over there. So the data integration and also online to offline is really, 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 really good. And let me close with this example from Ford, which was presented at Google I/O a few weeks ago. And I think this is also, I think you heard a lot about the famous Metaverse. I think this is how to make the Metaverse idea actually work today. It uses augmented reality, AR, on devices that exist today. Phones, you don't have to buy an expensive headset. Every consumer already has a device. And the magic comes, I think, alive when you use all of this in the real world with real products and technology as an enabler and not getting in the way. And I think this is also what gets us most excited about AR, the ability to focus on what matters in the real world, in the real life, to bring the product experience, a real product experience to customers. And when you watch the video, please focus exactly how this happens. I mean, how you bring the product experience to the customer, to the living room. But also, this is not just a nice online experience. You will see that this is also deliberately and purposefully an e-commerce destination, because you can actually reserve the car, possibly also then buy it online for it. So it's also clearly meant as a commercial asset here. So could you roll the video, please, or do I need to do it? Here we go. Well, thank you very much. Actually, if auto is an opera, where we are right now, we're probably not, the light opera like the Magic Flute, where it is a little challenge, but at the end, you win, but we're also not the very sad and dark one. Maybe we're the type of Parsifal type of opera where there's a challenge and a lot of changes to do and, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but at the end, you come out with the big salvation, the Holy Grail, and you get through it. And I'm very, very positive for the auto industry and for all of you to go through all of these changes and come out extremely strong, successful. It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you very much.
Opportunities and change. This will be the subject that we'll be touching on inside the round table of Motor Valley, which is one of the most incredible round tables. We will see the speakers for the panel, and they will speak together to confront the different opportunities. So I'll take the position and I'll leave the space for those who are about to come here on stage. And I would like to welcome the CEO of Energica Motor Company, Livia Cevolini.
Buongiorno, benvenuti.
Good morning, welcome. I go on with the CEO of Ducati Motor Holding, Claudio Domenicali. Good morning. Enrico Galliera, Chief Marketing and Commercial Officer of Ferrari. Orazio Pagani, Founder and President, Chief Designer, Pagani Automobili. Let's go on with Francesco Tron, Maserati Head of Global Product Planning, Maserati Fuori Serie and Classiche. And we conclude with Stefan Winkelmann, President and CEO, Automobili Lamborghini. We were talking about the fact that it is nice to see such a full panel in presence, and it is nice to see all of you inside this round table where we will have the chance to take position on different subjects. I would start from Mr. Cevolini. Your company entered the market as one of the most important stakeholders. We spoke about challenges. How could you evaluate this challenge? This is the first question. How far it is? No, I am part of an American group which is much wider. So our vision is much wider at on the world stage, even when it comes to products. We do not only see what we have seen so far, but also the very fast evolution in the automotive sector. We also see an evolution, a 360 degrees evolution that ranges from water to the earth to the cars. It is really a revolution of everything what moves with the new business unit called Energica SAS. We are receiving many orders, even for planes. So it is a real revolution that increases our enthusiasm. Being leader at a technological level means putting ourselves in place on different markets, and it is really a very, very nice challenge that we are facing with great enthusiasm. Challenges are at the basis of everything, are what make us grow. Let's speak about the logic of sharing, of competition, if you want, of confrontation. How can you see the mother bike, the most sustainable bike that we will have in the future? Well, first of all, good morning to all of you. Well, somehow we are really passionate about the relationship we have with our customers. They buy our products for the emotional character. So we are really attentive. We pay great attention to these aspects. I appreciated the previous speeches, and I think that carbon neutrality is something that it is extremely positive, and we are concentrating on that as a company. Nevertheless, there are different solutions, and the presentation that has been made about an hour ago somehow has introduced the concept according to which the mobility is probably electric. The mass mobility somehow can be considered a mass solution, but the e-fuels can also be considered a very interesting solution. And we are currently concentrating about the study of hydrogen as a combustion technique. The electrification is much ahead as a technology, and we will have to face a great competition when it comes to speed, the energy density in batteries. Today, the weight is the major problem in those vehicles, but there are development possibilities which are quite interesting, and these trends will be confirmed from here to 2025, and there is where we have to invest the most. The emotional character is also very important. In light of what has been said, the Lamborghini is a great myth. We spoke about transition, the motor, the engine 12, sustainability, but we have to think about different solutions. Well, first of all, we have great news. This will stay in the new Metaverse, which will be introduced on the market as from next year. It will be an hybrid marker. Let's not forget about the legislator, the lawmakers. They force us to reduce the emissions, and with the vehicles we produce and with the kilometer range, we do not really have an impact on the sustainability of this planet. But we are feeling part, if you want, of this great challenge. The companies has always been facing this challenge, and within the next 2 years, we will be hybridizing our next range of Lamborghini cars. We will be starting from the V12 engine, and we will go on with the others, and we will be capable of proposing the new Huracan model. We will be investing 1 billion and 8, as much more than what has been invested in the past. Then in 2028, we will launch the first vehicle which will be completely electric. Let's divide the cars in 2 categories. The integrally electric and the combustion engine cars, and as it has been said before, they will be powered with synthetic fuel. The fuel electric for us is an option that is very compelling, if you want. I think that we should not decide now what we should do with the sport cars. Hopefully, the legislature in 2025 will not be saying that the 4-stroke engine cannot be produced anymore, but let's hope that the good news will rename in 2025. We have a good news. Mr. Pagani, we heard the very important keynote speakers. They presented their point of view. What do you think when it comes to challenges? What's the challenge you need to grasp? Well, I agree with Stefano. First of all, we are currently working on the electric car project. That's the most common question we receive since 2018. So let's try to understand what interests, what motivates the customer to spend so much money to buy such a car. These 4 years, we have never managed to have from customers or from suppliers to generate that kind of emotion that can push them to buy such car. This being said, we keep on working on that, on this project, and I believe that in this place, in this area, there are all conditions are present so that we can act successfully. So I think that nobody of us has really a real problem. Think about what Ferrari is doing with the Formula E1. The engine they have is the most efficient. The Formula One engine is really very efficient. So sorry if I speak for you, but let's say things the way they are. They are capable of doing these winning machines. They have batteries, they have inverters, components. So it means that they are capable to produce on a hybrid or an electric car as well. Does it work? So the group that Stefan is representing, same thing. So I think that we have all the conditions to be successful. We have a cooperation since 25 years with ENG. They launched themselves in the development of hybrid cars. The Germans see this moment as something completely. They see the electric car as the car of the future. So we have this technology at our disposal indeed. But I believe that in this area, people are really creative. They're investing a lot in technology. So I think we have all the chances to be successful. We speak in a demagogic way about Bika, which is a hybrid model. If this model can do such a small part to save the planet. Well, saving the planet, we need to do much more. Let's need to be careful. We need to be careful, and we should not take decisions that are linked to the politics, because political decisions come from above, and they are not really democratic. There is a lot of demagogy there. So we should not try to hurt ourselves. In Argentina, we are #1 in hurting ourselves. So we should try not to hurt ourselves, but to do something productive. We always speak about sustainability, right? And it could be that the system becomes more and more unsustainable. That's the risk we have to face. Mr. Galliera, Ferrari, of course, Ferrari Formula One comes from our heart. Yes, of course. Orazio already spoke about how nice Ferrari models are, so I won't delve into that. I would like to take what has already been said, and I believe that our responsibility, as underlined, is important, and the impact on the global emissions is very modest. Our responsibility, after all that has been done, is to give the example. We should move all together to develop the technologies that then can help the environment. We have a role. We are a well-renowned company, so we have to do something responsible. On this point of view, there is a lot of uncertainty. So in this moment, we are facing an unforeseeable situation. The norms, the laws change from one city to the other, not only from one country to the other. So we do not know the evolution of the future fuels. There is a key word which is flexibility. We should remain flexible. We should know how to use certain technologies to create the best solutions, and also to give emotions, to produce emotions. Ferrari started the electrification process a long time ago. We created a supercar and a platform whereby we developed our competencies and skills, and we brought this competence onto the road. Today, our objective is to have all skills, all competencies and technologies inside our company for the electric engine, combustion engine, and so on, that can help us to mix these competencies and use them for the future. So we launched our heart beyond the obstacle. Maserati has a program, a well-defined program. So I ask you to tell us about the technological challenges, but also technical challenges. Yes, we started 4 or 5 years ago. It was a moment where we were rethinking the strategic plan of our brand, and we wanted to do 2 things. We wanted to re-establish the brand, and we created a new engine with the Formula One technologies. It was evident already at that time that the electric car was going to be the car of the future. At Maserati, we have a range of cars which is much wider. We have a lifestyle and a super sport car. So for us, it was really a path that had already been set. And we started this work, and it was a kind of cruel for our engineers. It was a long list of problems from the packaging, the heights, the weight, the distribution of weight in the car, the charging range, but mainly the emotions. What our engineers couldn't digest was really that absence of emotions. It was not just the sound, the dynamic, and it was a series of other elements. Step by step, we managed to solve these problems. We are very happy about that. And in a few months, we will be launching a series of electrical cars that have already been introduced in Rome. And this electrification plan will be concluded, ultimated in 2025, where our range will be totally electrified. Sport cars are much more delicate, but we also see that for those segments to be considered as lifestyle, the electric version will be perfect. Mr. Cevolini, the approach you presented made you exceptional. So what's your experience? What's your impression in this experience, and what are the strategic advantages? Well, I can tell that we have a double-fold experience. It was positive, but it was also a lost occasion. Positive experience because we understood for ourselves what our skills were. We managed with a pool of people to build up an entire range of products with motorbikes that were produced from the old series and where the costs were monitored since the beginning. And today, I touch wood, if there is wood. We didn't have any problems in 4 years of competitions. So this helped us to manage our skills and to understand how important they were. It was also a lost occasion because here we are speaking about an electrical evolution, and we decided to contain the costs and also the technological evolution. And so it really made sense for the product range because it helped us to start in the motor competitions worldwide. But on the point of view of a manufacturer, this limited the technological development, and so that's the result. On our point of view, we just produce electric. We just do innovation in the electric field. We do not have any conflict of interest. So the investing in the electric technology for us has been paramount. That's why I say that it has been a limitation. We managed to participate in competitions. What we brought our innovation first on the road with the racing motorbikes. We had more advanced motorbikes, and somehow this has been the balance that we have today. But we keep on going. There will be another choice. So hopefully there will be the possibility to come back to the competitions. Mr. Domenicali, the entrance in the electric world, what can you say about that?
Da Energica, quindi
I think that we have done a very nice job given the size of the company and the team, the proximity to the series motorcycles. It has been a very nice opportunity for us to set up a technology lab. We did the reverse, actually, because we are now developing a purely racing motorcycle, trying and putting the new technologies on board to come up with an innovative product that lets us understand the big diversities and differences that exist. In this region, there is a big expertise in internal combustion engines. So we come out with a V4 Desmo 16 motorcycle is one of the strongest, most powerful engines of all in terms of pure performance. And so I believe that given what we heard, that the same skills and expertise should be developed also in electric performance. So for us, it is extremely relevant not just to develop new motorcycles, but people, talents. We collaborate with the university. We support a team that already started that uses this motor student product, and so we keep new young people close to us, and so it's a new experience in collaboration with the university so that they can grow, and so we are trying and understanding everything. So everything depends on the experience we are doing. So we are trying and keeping the inverter engine and the battery package at the right temperature throughout the race, so that the electric engine, you see, it's fascinating. I grew up by studying and developing engines, and it's fantastic to understand the performance and new opportunities that can be delivered by an electric motor, and much depends on temperature. We are testing various types of cooling systems, water-based, oil-based cooling systems. It's a fascinating world, and I really love the idea of developing these new technologies, as we generally do in Ducati. And so the racing world delivers a product to be applied to all the bikers when the technology is ready. And what about temperature and where technologies that you have to develop? I think that all this is absolutely interesting, right? When you talk electrification about it, I mean, it shows that that's something that is not yet available on the future. As long as we talk about hybridization that is understandable by customers, batteries are recharged by the internal combustion engine, there is not a big problem. Of course, batteries reduce emissions, but the promise that we have to keep and deliver for new customers is that cars become much more performing than the present or the other ones. And so a manufacturer like Lamborghini is not just interested in super sports car, but the side acceleration, the way in which you manage bends, how to manage the steering wheel or the braking system. This is something to be further tested in fully electric cars, and this is a new challenge that we have to address, and all of us should do it, and this is important. And one of the key things is the battery cooling. Once you brake and you don't have to stop because the batteries are no longer working because they are heated up. So I want to understand how many times I can accelerate from 0 to 100, etc., the maximum speed to be held, acceleration, braking, autonomy, and all these various aspects have to be well studied. If a customer buys an electric car, expects not just the car having the same performance as a traditional car, but even more than that. So on the one hand, it's you. On the other hand, you have customers who want to buy a car, a vehicle, motorcycle. They do not just buy a product, but a dream. How does demand change? Since we've talked about change quite a lot, and we have heard what one of the keynote speakers said, the importance of infotainment and the motor innovation and so on and so forth. I know that we are quite late, but try and be brief and answer to this question. If we just look at what the market expects, what customers demand, we are not necessarily doing the right thing. An example. Let me explain it better. 3 years ago, we launched SF90, a car So electrification was not just aimed at reducing emissions, but also to give emotion. 25 kilometer covered in full electric mode, and at the beginning the reaction was a surprise. But then when I wake up in the morning. I don't wake up everybody, and so I can enjoy it. Um, and I can enjoy the sound of the um, traditional engine. It depends on what the various needs are in terms of the various uses and functions. It is not the daily use of a car when you talk about this sports car. In the past, we used a horse to move around. Of course, it doesn't make sense because you drive a car, but it doesn't mean that horses are no longer there. So we need to think of something else and be more sustainable, develop new technologies, new manufacturing methods, but we should keep our DNA, which is quite unique, to be used at special moment to come home with a nice smile on your face and on your vehicle. So based on our needs, we need to find the right type of solution. I mean, solution or product range for every kind of demands and needs. We are about to launch the Gran Turismo electric car. It is a car with a battery package with a low gravity center and as well as for inverters. And when technicians tried it out and they found the Maserati performance and driving style, so we are quite confident about it. And so when we talk about a supercar, hydrogen and green fuels will come into play. We cannot, of course, give up something that is true for Motor Valley and brands. What about Metaverse? Who wants to talk about it? Winkelmann said no, maybe. Google, Metaverse, we heard all about it, and the ability to have everything at hand or at click. On one hand, you might lose something in terms of the more traditional aspect. Should we're always on the run, and a click is enough to obtain whatever we like, right? How long do I have? It is a very complex topic, but all in all, first and foremost, we need to make dreams come true. We need to be the dream makers, the exclusive ones, feel like a pilot guys, and we need to create a community. That's our aim. Of course, we know that sustainability is in the way, as well as digitization. When it comes to digitization, we both have the car vision. So our car should be adjustable to everything we do on our smartphone, including all the safety systems, ADAS, etc. And a car like Lamborghini and the other super sports cars, of course, they need to be equipped with apps that make a difference as against the other cars. An example, the ideal lineup. If we talk about then the digital world as such, we are quite present in social media. We are quite active and record results in terms of clicks and views, etc. And when we talk about NFT and Metaverse, we are still at the beginning. We were lucky enough as NFT because we have a young, very young audience. We think that we have customers in 2025 will be less than 40 years old by 70%, and this is something exceptional for a brand like ours. So we've got very young customers. We had artists who approached us to do some NFT together, but before being ready, others were readier than us. We did 2 pilot tests, and they performed quite well, but we are cautious because we used traditional channels in our social media. We haven't used the new channels yet, the ones that are generally used in this kind of reality. As for Metaverse, we have just launched a work group a few weeks ago to try and understand what can be done by us not to make any mistakes, any blunders. Being at the beginning, it is a fully new world, and so a big attention is focused on that. Our company, our cars are much more complicated than, for example, sports shoes, sports footwear. So we need to study NFT well, and we'll see what to do.
A cui oggi non riusciamo a dare.
We still need to work on it. And then what about artificial intelligence? Something that might also be useful to guarantee privacy, security, cyber privacy, etc. What about you? What is your strength? What is your idea as far as privacy is concerned? This is a question for each of you. I don't know whether Mr. Winkelmann would like to answer first. We are always quite active. We have users that are younger than 30 or 25, so we are very, very active, and we are very happy about the advent of these new technologies because it allows us to try innovation out, performance of engines and cars and everything that turns around it. So we are working on it, and it was one of my main ideas. When nobody knew what it was, I was already trying and trying out and do everything in augmented reality, and really look forward to the dissemination of this new tech. And we are the company that is used to being out of the comfort zone. So we have a different position, and being there with our historic roots, but with this thinking out of the box thing, we like it that way. It is part of our DNA, so we really look forward to launching a new project, but we're still working on it. It takes some time. And now, Mr. Pagani, it's complicated, right? Yeah, on the one hand, we are used to do what the customer asks us to do. It is quite a demanding task. If you think that the new car that we will launch in September, and most customers asked it with a manual shift, manual transmission with such a high torque, it is something quite difficult. Our customers are maybe against the current. Maybe they didn't even want a hybrid car. They were looking for a traditional car. So we have to focus our energy on what customers ask for. If the customers ask for an analogic traditional car, okay, we won't have much digital features in it. Being small, we cannot do much. We spend a lot in research and development. Our cars, of course, are quite lightweight. We have been working on it, and we work on aerodynamics, and we work on the things that customers like with high customization rate, etc. We work a lot on safety. First of all, we are a small car manufacturer, but we abide by the strictest regulations of the state. So we do everything that is required by the American market. CARVA is for environmental issues, emission levels. Since Pagani, average customers are around 30. All these electric things and virtual reality and so on and so forth. This is food for thought for our engineers, because our guys really love innovation. Of course, there is a difference between what you have to do and you want to do for your company to be sustainable. Of course, there is a gap that has to be bridged. So we try and do everything right, but we need to focus on what is most useful to make the company profitable. And what about a talent emergency? I think that it was true in the past. We are on a better track now, and people are really looking forward to applying and trying new technologies out. This is part of the Italian DNA. Italy never stops when faced with a problem, but finding a solution with the creativity and passion. So there's nothing wrong with an electric engine, poor thing, but you need to find the necessary click to make it thrilling, and young people are there for trying and innovating in a thrilling way. We need to go on investing, but I'm not concerned about the lack of talents and skills.
If you allow me, I would like to come back to what has been said before. First of all, we saw that the challenges we had to face were really something exceptional and implied a complete change in the connectivity, electrification, technology. Allow me to make a remark which is quite extraordinary. I think these challenges are extraordinary, very difficult. It's how we approach them what makes the difference. And here it boils down to what Pagani has said. We want to play, and probably we want to understand where inside of these changes we can find opportunities. The others, which is becoming more and more important, has the objective of becoming more and more autonomous. I hope there will never be somebody buying a Ferrari because the Ferrari has a self-drive system. But this does not mean that we cannot grasp opportunities. Well, we can use another for safety and security. There might be things that are risky, so there are opportunities to be grasped. There are a series of trends, the trends we identified before. The challenge is really to find inside of every challenge what makes our positioning better. Teron, what's the greatest challenge on the basis of what has been said before? What's the challenge you want to win? What represents the most your dream and the realization of your dream as a manufacturer? Now, so two things. Well, the first thing we want to realize is to become the first leader in the luxury field. We are trying, and we will be probably the first. The biggest challenge is probably the fact that for a customer that loves a car very much, the big challenge is to have access to a series of functions that make the car exceptional. So the experience of the customers will be something important. We do not only sell a car, we do sell a mobility option, but we sell an experience as well. The customer is probably asking themselves, well, I'm buying my experience, not just a product. So we have to face many challenges. We have to fill in quality requirements. But for us, as a brand manufacturer, it's something very important as a challenge. Civolini, for me, the most important challenge, and I come back to saying in my field, for our company, is to create a culture based on the electric, but for real, speaking in an open way and leading the end consumer to have a more open and honest communication. They need to know about the truth. They don't need to be pulled into different directions. But
quindi è assolutamente importante fare questo perché questo ci serve.
But it is useful because it is useful for us as a company to have the involvement of customers and of young people as well. We already won this challenge. The working age in our company is very low. We need to involve people, but to do so, we need to say the reality as well. Even when it's too hard, somebody may not like it, but we should not cheat on the customer. We should start saying the truth at 360 degrees. We need institutions, and we also need super partes studies that can share the real data. We need the truth. Mr. Domenicali, what's your position? Yes, we are all companies, all manufacturers working for the high-profile customers. So we do sell not only the product itself, but also the emotions that this product produces. Well, the first emotion, you get it when you start buying this product. After buying it and after getting in possession of it, you have an experience which is very analogic, because it becomes an experience which is very physical. The biggest challenge is that tends to keep this balance between the analogic component and the less analogic one, from one extreme to the other. So the connection between the digital with the digital world as well, which is part of our life. The younger they are, the customers they are, the more they want to experience this balance. So we have to keep in balance the analogic and the digital parts. These actually flipping from one side to the other will be the biggest challenge. I think I would like to spend a couple of words, and I think it's worth it. These words represent a very important part of where we want to go. Blockchain and Industry 4.0. Blockchain is a technology that will be changing very strongly our world as the web. Up to 1.5 years, I didn't even know what it was all about, but for the FT world, we had to study it in details. So I guess the half of people sitting in this room already know what it's all about. Another half of it doesn't. So it is a transversal technology which is connected to the Web 3.0. And is directly connected with the creation of websites. The 2.0 was the shift from the individual usage to the biggest platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, where the user has the possibility of interacting with the others. But this interaction is in the field of use. We have these big platforms having the data of everybody. 3.0 is based on the blockchain technology, so where we have an information which is quite well distributed. And here you have the possibility of certifying what's the truth. Those will be who will manage to face the challenge. They will unify usage and a smart usage of technology, and they will be capable of combining it with emotion. I think this is the most challenging aspect in 10 years. We have to remain as somebody who produces dreams. And this must be something that you can experience in first person. The biggest challenges we have are the sustainability, big time, but now we also have the subject of digitalization, which is becoming more and more important. Then the balance of the different aspects is important. The resources and also the costs must be under control. But the most part is that we have to remain people who build dreams. Pagani? Well, in the last 2 or 3 occasions, we spoke about cars, electric cars, right? So I believe that these cars are high-performing cars. I think we can produce high-performing cars. We can resolve the most of our technical problems, and everybody will be capable of producing an electrical car. And I believe that we will also be selling them. It is most likely that the electric car will become another car that we will be selling in our range, project range. We always find a buyer, but we don't solve the problems that the planet is facing doing that. But probably we can say that about 20 transporting ships pollute as much as 50 millions of cars. So the change relies in the fact that we should give the example. Shall we keep on buying stupid things that are useless, that come to Europe from China, and it is probably that this container transported by ship, by maritime ways, pollutes, and because these ships do not have catalyzers and so on. So it is important to bear in mind these aspects. If you buy those cars coming from China, and probably the oil is not the same, has not the same standards that the oil we use. It can be an oil that can be used to fry French fries. So we have to be careful. The energy production for about 90% at global level is done with oil, gas, and carbon, coal. So just a small part is being produced with renewable energy sources. So we have to be careful. And Enrico said that the lawmakers shall be clear, because we do produce cars, but of course, when you produce a car, you should look at the law, and then you act upon accordingly. But it's the law that provides you the provisions to be respected. So the lawmakers shall think, as we think, shall think in the cases of, shall think about what's really needed and what the important elements are. It is important to bear in mind how, to what extent the car we produce create a problem for the world. Our factory is entirely equipped with photovoltaic solar panels. This is just to give you an example. But such panels, when I ask what are they used for, well, the panels can be used for welders, for electrical welders, for turning on the lights, for making the factory work. So today we have to bear in mind that the technology must be sustainable. There must be a change that happens in our habits, production habits. And to move forward just by a small step, we should bear that in mind. We should not shift from black to white just like that. Galera, are there crises to be expected? Yes. Do you bear in mind gray colors as well, apart from white and black? Yes, we have some gray spots as well. I would like to use a word, an English word. The great challenge we have at Ferrari, but in every manufacturing company, is the following. Dream whatever it takes is the English sentence I would use. So our challenge is, regardless of the technology, the positioning we have on the market and the laws, our biggest dream is to be a company that is widely dreamed by the consumers of every generations. We have many companies in this region, and hopefully this region can be called within the next 20 years the Motor Valley region. That's the reason why I thank you so much for being here on this stage, for sharing your view. I thank all people present, and I recall that after the lunch break, after cutting the ribbon, we will have different roundtables inside the Motor Valley initiatives. We have the contribution of Plug and Play Modena, of Unicredit, and we will have several debates. there is the event Innovation and Talents that has already started, and so buried us inside the Motor Valley Fest. And see you after lunch. Good lunch, and see you later. Thank you.